Welcome to the big story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The only big story tonight, former President Rodrigo Duterte faces the Senate. One of many bombshells he dropped, a confirmation that he indeed did have a death squad at some point.
Another revelation from Duterte. He ordered PNP operatives to, quote, encourage drug suspects to fight back, which then gave police officers an excuse to shoot them dead.
Duterte also said that he offers no apologies nor excuses for the drug war that killed thousands. He went so far as to say that he will do it all over again, given the chance.
All eyes were on former President Rodrigo Duterte today as he faced the first Senate hearing on the war on drugs.
One of the things he said that's already making international headlines is that there is indeed a death squad. He says they're a group of 7 gangsters, not police officers, that he used while he was mayor of Davao City.
But then Duterte also insisted that he did not order police killings during the drug war and that there is no such state policy. Mayan Los Baños with the report.
Can I suspend for a few minutes?
Former President Rodrigo Duterte supported himself with a cane as he walked into the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee's hearing on the war on drugs. Facing the senators, he asked to be treated as a witness rather than a former president or a friend. In a prepared speech, he said he took responsibility for everything that happened during his administration's war on drugs.
For all of its successes and shortcomings, I alone take full legal responsibility sa lahat na nagawa ng mga pulis pursuant to my order. Ako ang managot at ako ang makulong, wag yung pulis na sumunod sa order ko.
But Duterte insists he's not apologizing for the drug war. He claimed that he did it to protect Filipinos.
Do not question my policies because I offer no apologies, no excuses. I did what I had to do. And whether you believe it or not, I did it for my country.
Frequently cursing during the hearing or going off tangent, Duterte further insisted that he never ordered any policeman nor soldier to abuse or kill, unless the suspect fought back.
Kung may baril at kung tingin mo, sabi ko sa mga polis doon sa academy, mamamatay ka, barilin mo. Barilin mo sa ulo. Patayin mo at least one less criminal in the community.
Even retired Colonel Jovi Espinido, who first testified against the Duterte drug war, admitted that there was no direct order to kill drug suspects. The other notable thing during the inquiry was Duterte admitting he had a death squad when he was mayor of Davao City. He said these were a group of 7 gangsters he used, but when Senators Coco Pimentel and Risa Hontiveros pressed him on the details, he gave unclear answers.
Meron akong death squad. Death squad. Pero hindi yung mga pulis. Sila rin yung mga gangster. Yung isang gangster, utusan ko.
May sarili kayo ngayong tinayo na hit squad. Is that what you're trying to tell us? Para hindi po kami nalilito po. I mean, can we be very clear?
Hindi naman death squad. Basta alam ng tao sa Davao na nandyan ako at magkamali ka and you commit a heinous crime at walang mapuntahan yung agrabyado, ako yan.
He also insisted he never asked any of his former police chiefs, including Senator Bato de la Rosa, who was in the room, to carry out extrajudicial killings. Duterte also denied that he called former Police Colonel Regina Lay in May 2016 to ask her help in finding someone who can roll out the so-called Davao model nationwide.
I do not remember calling her. And for what?
Ang sabi po kasi niya dun sa revelation dun sa Quad Committee, nagpapahanap din po kayo ng isang police officer na miyembro ng INC.
I hate to say this, but nagsisinungaling yung gang yan. Bakit ako mamili ng Iglesia ni Cristo? Wala akong pakialam kung anong relihiyon ninyo. Trabaho kayo dyan. Alam nila yan. Alam nila yan kung paano ko sila murahin. Do not give me that shit to put.
At some point, Duterte said he did encourage police to egg on suspects so they would fight back, which gave police an excuse to shoot them down. For News 5, I'm Mean Los Baños. We are One News.
The hearing was meaningful, not just because it's the first time former President Duterte testified, but also because it's the first time he has come face-to-face with his nemesis, former Senator Lima, since he put her in jail. They sat on the same row at the Senate Hall earlier, separated by just one person. In her opening statement, she said Duterte had, quote, long evaded justice and accountability. De Lima had carried out an investigation on vigilante-style killings against him when he was still mayor and she was just secretary, and confirmed the existence of the death squad.
Killings had started nung time pa niya as mayor, yung phenomenon ng Davao Death Squad. Pinatuloy niya at nagiging klarado dun sa mga naririnig natin sa House of Representatives Quadcom hearings that yun din ang ginawang modelo ng war on drugs starting 2016. Manlanlaban man o hindi, ang problema sa nanlaban, hindi ho kapani-paniwala. Siguro may ilan-ilan na may mga nanlaban talaga. Pero sa karamihan, sa mga lumabas na mga kwento ng mga kaanak ng mga biktima, ay karamihan sa kanila ay hindi nanlaban.
De Lima, one of Duterte's staunchest critics, was elected senator in 2016 but had been arrested by February 2017 on 3 drug trafficking charges. She spent over 6 years in jail before being cleared of all charges. Now, even behind bars, she says she monitored the killings, but that the reports she filed never amounted to anything because of a culture of fear and impunity.
Ako sa kulungan, I continued to monitor what was happening. I had with me already the records ng Senate investigation, at least nung ako pa yung nag-preside. I even filed and submitted a comprehensive dissenting report dun sa naging majority report by the committee, the Gordon report. I filed a dissenting report. I also had the records of my investigation of the DDS phenomenon. Pero ang isa pong ang pwede nating makita doon is that hindi natin mga natapos yun kasi nandyan yung atmosphere of, or the atmosphere of fear, the culture of fear and impunity.
Ako sa kampo dito sa mga ulol na to, the evil. Tagal na siguro ako sa kulungan o patay na.
Ano ba? Ako. Ikaw, Lorraine. Mr. President, sir, yes. Nagmo-monitor ako ng mga comments, sir, during the Senate hearing. Tapos yung predominant na narinig ko, we miss this president. We miss yung ganitong malakas na paninindigan. At nanggagaling kasi yun, sir, sa mga taong malungkot na at natatakot sa mga kriminal at kriminalidad. So, ano po kayang pwede niyong sabihin sa ating mga kababayan para bigyan nyo naman ng konting lakas ng loob?
Alam mo, to my countrymen, many, maybe almost half of the population, baski dito sa kwartong ito, hindi niyo magustuhan yung demeanor ko, yung asta ko. Sabi niya, ito ba mayabang ito o ano ba gusto ipakita nito? Yung naging presidente na ito, naging mayor na ito, ano pang gusto niyang ipakita? Ang gusto ko kasing ipakita is my message primarily to the Filipino people is that ito sasabihin ko para ito sa inyo. It is really actually to protect you. Na itong mga kriminal, nagbibigay ito ng problema sa atin. Alam mo, pag ikaw ay isang wage earner lang, ordinary, nagtatrabaho ka lang sa hotel, may anak ka, nag-aaral, tapos college sa gabi. You know, every night, kung sa trabaho ka, o nasa bahay ka na, tapos naghihintay ka pa, magsige ka tingin ng relos mo, lalo na kung may bagyo, hindi mo malaman kung yung bus na sinakyan ng anak mo hinold up o naglalakad yung anak mong babae dinampot. Yung sense of security wala. Sa Davao, meron talaga. Kasi pag nagkamali ka talaga, sabihin, let me be very bastos ang bunga ko. Do not fuck in my city. Huwag mong galawin niyang inosenteng tao, lalo na yung mga bata. Pag ginalaw mo yan, hindi kita papalusutin. Yung mayor ako, nang magtanong kayo, I'm sure almost nasa isip, Mayor, ilan ang pinatay mong kriminal sa Davao? Hindi ko naman masabi, ma'am. I can't quantify it. But sinabi ko lang, there was, we enjoyed a little place or there was law and order. Sumusunod naman lahat. Malinis ang Davao. Sumusunod naman, sinabi ko na huwag natin hiyain ang, maraming bisita dito. Pagandahin natin ang Davao. Kayong mga kriminal, umalis na kayo. Punta kayo sa ibang lugar, may sinasabi ako na mga cities, pero out of respeto sa kanila, I will not repeat it again. Mukhang mai-insulto rin sila. So, umalis kayo. I'll give you the chance. Pero napakawala ko talagang patience sa maliit masyado ang magkamali ka lang ng kunti. Pagka-criminal ka, may record ka, galing ka sa munti o nakulong ka na, at may record ka sa database sa nasyonal, mag-ingat ka talaga kasi kunting kakamali yan. Tatapusin kita. Para ano?
Okay, that was a live press conference that former President Rodrigo Duterte was holding just now in real time after that very long Senate hearing he participated in earlier today. Now let's try to make sense of all of this. We have with us tonight Carlos Conde, Senior Researcher at the Asia Division of Human Rights Watch. Good evening, Kaloy. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good evening.
There we go. Fantastic. So much to unpack today. Let's start from a big picture. Let's start from a big picture perspective. What were your biggest takeaways, or what about the hearing stood out to you?
Well, the one thing is that it was not surprising that Mr. Duterte behaved the way he did, and I think that's to the benefit of a lot of people, particularly the victims, because he said a lot of things today that might be useful in attempts to bring him to justice. He admitted having his own death squad. He admitted inducing police officers to commit crimes, things like that. So, in that sense, this was the hearing was, I would say, very revealing. On the other hand, though, I think the Senate was hijacked by this person. He basically ran away with it. He controlled practically the flow of the conversation, and the senators were not given much chance to, to question him in very significant ways. Senator Raisa Ontiveros did try to elicit some answers from him, some more details, but he didn't get much help from her colleagues in the Senate. So that's kind of sad. And so, in my mind, I think the senators failed in their duty to really exercise some oversight in taking Mr. Duterte's word and holding it up to light, to make him in the future possibly accountable for what he did. So yeah, that's my take on that one.
Oh, nga, it's former President Duterte was at one point the one who was questioning the senators, right?
Yeah, if you're familiar with how he held press conferences when he was in power, it sounded like that a lot. So
and the cursing and the use of expletives at every turn, they couldn't get a hold. They couldn't, control that. They couldn't put a stamp on it.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's people will probably say, oh no, it's just profanity and all of that. I mean, we're dealing with a lot more important issues here, such as the killings. But unfortunately, not a lot of information about specific cases or about how they conducted the drug war were elicited from Duterte. A lot of what he said were self-serving. And I forgot to mention earlier that, in fact, this is actually kind of the design by Senator Bato de la Rosa and Senator Bongo to hold this hearing. Because keep in mind, they were the ones who wanted this to happen. And as we saw today, they pretty much gave the Senate hearing as a platform for Mr. Duterte and for Mr. De La Rosa himself, who is a respondent in many of these, to stick to their own narrative and defend the drug war.
But Kaloy, the onus on controlling the hearing and controlling the narrative of that hearing, though, is not on the former president, but on the senators. Were you happy with how they conducted the entire hearing?
Oh, not at all. I think, and you're right, the onus is on the senators, particularly Senator Coco Pimentel, who was chairing the whole proceeding. The thing is that what Mr. Duterte did was not surprising. In fact, I kind of expect him to do exactly what he did. I would be more surprised if he didn't. What was disappointing was how he was given so much leeway, how Mr. Pimentel cut him a lot of slack to the detriment of the others who may have questions, particularly Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Well, Kaloy, one thing that he did say in this hearing that is capturing headlines all over the world is that he admitted that he had a death squad of 7. Noong una, tinuturo pa niya yung mga PNP chief at saka yung mga director, regional director niya, sinasabi niya, death squad lahat yan. Tapos, nung tinanong na siya ni Senator Risa Ontiveros, when she pressed him on it, sinabi niya, walang police at these are criminals killing criminals. Kung hindi, sinabihan niya na, kung hindi mo patayin, papatayin kita. My question is, I mean, can we hold him to account with anything that he's saying in this hearing? Because it seems that he says something, tapos babawiin niya, which he does.
Classic Duterte.
In press conferences. Yeah. But this time, it's a different setting. It's a Senate hearing.
And he was sworn.
What can we use now?
That's a good point that he was under oath, actually, when he was saying all of this. Probably in a court proceeding, in a kind of like a Philippine court, that would be pointless because he might have some out in the way he was speaking about these things. But keep in mind, the case that's pending now, that's being looked into at ICC, crimes against humanity, tend to have a much wider kind of latitude in terms of determining a person's culpability. So itong mga ganitong bagay na, he would say he would induce police officers or police officials to for criminals to commit crimes so that they can kill them easily. Those kinds of statements, I hope would count to the investigators of the ICC. This underscores actually the level of control Mr. Duterte had and the level of responsibility that he feels towards police officers. Keep in mind, during the hearing, he was like endless about his, point to help, to protect, that he was only looking out for the welfare of police officers, things like that. So he was very, very consistent about that. But again, this being a crime against humanity, that will be factored in as well. He insists that he and he alone should be legally be responsible, and that day might just come.
Okay, Kaloy, Senator Bongo said a couple of weeks ago, he pointed out that during the Duterte administration, no one wanted to speak out. And in fact, the other lawmakers, some of who are still incumbent today, they even applauded him. Are they completely blameless? And, a lot of people are also saying these hearings are politicized. And the former President Duterte even asked of the Senate, why have I not been brought to justice? And I thought that was a really good question.
That was a lot of chutzpah there by the president to challenge the Senate. Indeed, I mean, he admitted he had killed a lot of people. Why am I still not facing any serious charges from any of you? So he's challenging the authorities to, it's a very in-your-face attitude of the president. And again, that's not surprising. But the senators, back to your question about the senators, are they blameless in all of this? Of course not. A lot of them, look, there are several in the Senate that remain supporters of Mr. Duterte. There's Bato, there's Bongo, there's Robin Padilla, and a host of others. And even those senators who we might think are neutral in all of this are basically silent. So that silence is, sabi nga nila, complicity. That silence may be interpreted as being supportive of Mr. Duterte. I mean, sure, people are still afraid of him, but look, this administration, in fairness to this administration, the Marcos administration, they're trying to set things right, it seems. It's begun in the lower house of Congress where a lot of allegations have come out, and which is precisely why the Senate hearing was called to begin with, because they want to counter those allegations. So things are moving. It looks like things are moving accountability-wise, and these senators who enabled the drug war, who in fact also persecuted Lila de Lima and other critics, will have to answer for their behavior at some point.
When Duterte said in his opening statement, I have always viewed people addicted to illegal drugs as victims and patients requiring medical health and not as criminals. What was going through your mind?
It's a lot of bunk, to be honest. You can't claim to be respecting the rights or the welfare of these obviously victims, and at the same time launch a campaign to annihilate them. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And they keep saying, meron kami mga drug rehabilitation centers, facilities we put up. I mean, that's something that anybody can do. Even Cynthia Villar did that. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that the drug war, regardless of how many rehab centers you built, and in fact, I would challenge people to check if those rehab centers actually worked, because there is some evidence from so-called harm reduction groups that these rehabilitation and treatment centers by the government are not actually working as they should. So anyway, the whole point of all of this is to try to determine how bad the drug war was waged. It should be assumed that if you are a sane and responsible leader, rehab and treatment should be the first thing to do, because if you recognize that the drug problem is a health problem more than a safety problem, that should be the first thing that you will deal with. But this president, no, the first day of their office, they issued the directive to launch the drug war. What does it say? And then after that, dozens and dozens, hundreds, and then thousands and thousands ended up dead. I mean, that kind of simple fact flies in the face of what they're saying about any other things about respecting the rights of drug users.
One thing that the former president also kept saying was that he had the back of our police force. Sabi niya, protektado ko sila because of so and so, and you know, they lose their livelihood when they're suspended. At wag nyo silang, kumbaga, all they did was follow. And ako ang dapat kasuhan dito, akong responsable. What do you think was he trying to do there? Speaking to police officers, do you think he was also trying to connect with them with this? I mean, putting that in contrast with Regina Garma's testimony over at the House of Representatives, do you think he was trying to do something there, or was it just the classic Duterte trying to
it's not the first time he has said it. He often does say those things. Paulit-ulit. And throughout the 6 years.
Shawn is correct. I mean, that's not the first time he did that. I mean, he always was very clear about his support for the police, and for good reason. In fact, during his term, he took extra steps to try to, cultivate a very good relationship with the police and the military. And for better or worse, you gotta give him credit for that. But the flip side of that is he clearly used the police for a lot of nefarious activities during the drug war. I mean, you cannot dismiss all of the documentation, not just that came out in the Congress hearings, but all the documentation of a lot of groups, including ours, about the conduct of the police, during the drug war, the abusive, the very, very lethal conduct that they did, and it's not a secret that the police are very, very abusive in the Philippines. A lot of them are very, very corrupt. Not all, obviously, but that's the kind of organization that is perfect to enforce something as lethal and I would say egregious as the drug war. So there you go. I mean, Duterte had to do that. He had to make sure that the police are, they are taken care of. That's the bottom line for him.
Okay.
It's his modus. So yeah.
Keep in mind that the five suspects who are said to be going to be served warrants of arrest by the ICC are all policemen. They are critical to this investigation. And with Regina Garma being called up when she was in detention, pinaliwanag doon ni Presidente kung bakit INC ang gusto niya na mag-lead ng kanyang drug war. I mean, all of those things, it is quite worrying, right? That's why I was wondering if this was a message that the former president was trying to send to the police force.
Well, one way to look at this is that he's signaling to the police force, to those who he'd work with, to kind of circle the wagon, as it were. They need to protect each other because obviously the ICC is targeting the most responsible in these crimes against humanity. It's Duterte, Bato, and other high-level officials. But if the Department of Justice of the Marcos administration is serious about accountability and holding people, to account or bring them to court for the crimes they did during the drug war, then some other police officers, lower level, are vulnerable for that. And Mr. Duterte is basically telling them, I have your back. And that's because it's a self-serving kind of thing to say. And it's something that parang kayong mga kriminal na you try to protect each other, dapat magkapare-pareho yung mga kwento natin. Because if you trace all the kind of the bombshell allegations of this investigation from the get-go, practically all of them involve police officers. And it's it taxes the imagination, or it taxes credulity to not conclude that the police, the PNP as an organization, has allowed this thing to happen, and they need also to be held accountable.
Yeah. Kaloy, super quick, I just wanted to ask Reg, because I saw on your website from Human Rights Watch that drug-related PNP killings are still happening under this administration. Can you tell us very quickly what is happening in terms of PNP-related drug killings?
Well, there's a thing. The drug war is still happening, although the level of violence is not as intense as before. People are still being killed. People are still dying. Because one of the reasons is because the drug war policy of Mr. Duterte is still in force. That's a thing we want the Marcos administration to change, to rescind all of these police orders that operationalize the drug war. Until he does that, all of this talk about him not being Duterte and him promoting human rights that's going to be meaningless.
Right. What is your tally for EJ case under the Duterte administration? Total victims?
Well, there's kind of a debate as to how many exactly.
There is a wide
but
disparity, but what is Human Rights Watch's figure?
we don't do that. We don't do quantitative thing. We just do qualitative. But if we go by what the police officially admits, like the 6,252 deaths ng mga nanlaban since 2016 up to 2022, that's a lot of people who died na nanlaban lahat. And in fact, meron pang sinabi si Father Flavio during the hearing.
Yeah.
If all those people actually nanlaban, it goes without it logically dapat mayroong mga baril yung mga yan. Nasaan yung mga baril na yun? And it hasn't been accounted for.
That is a very good question, but we've run out of time, so we're going to have to leave that there. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and helping us make sense of this. Carlos Conde, Human Rights Watch.
Pausing now for a quick break, but right after this, we will be coming back to the Senate hearing on the war on drugs, and this time, hear from the lawyer of some Tokang victims, that is attorney Shawn Yao. He joins us on the big story when we return. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
At the hearing earlier, former President Rodrigo Duterte also came face-to-face with the families and lawyers of the alleged victims of extrajudicial killings. Mobile journalist Denise Valdez-Sancho has that report.
In front of former President Rodrigo Duterte, Father Flaviano Villanueva of Program Paghilom showed off this very long list of names of alleged victims of extrajudicial killings during the Duterte administration.
329 names. Pinaslang lahat. Lahat po ay may pamilya, nawalan ng breadwinner. At ngayon ay naghihikahos, ngunit lumalaban.
Father Flaviano says, per his records, more than 3,000 had been killed in the first 100 days of Duterte as president. One infamous casualty during the drug war was teenager Kian de los Santos, who police said fought back during an anti-illegal drugs operation in 2017, or Nanlaban. In front of the senators, his uncle blasted the PNP's account that Kian's father was a drug pusher. Eventually, Senator Ronald De La Rosa, the PNP chief back then, admitted the teen should not have been killed. Senator Risa Hontiveros asked the former president if he also took responsibility for the killing of Kian de los Santos, as with other killings during the drug war. This sparked a heated debate.
I am basing my question dun sa mga sinabi ninyo repeatedly. Parang tuwing Oktubre nga sinasabi nyo na you will take responsibility.
Correct.
So now let me ask you about Carl Anthony Nunez, 20 years old. Walang nahanap na droga o baril sa katawan niya. Sabi nga ng investigador, mistaken identity. Do you take responsibility for his death?
Yung policy, ma'am, hindi mo nakuha yung yung policy ng presidente.
Nakuha ko po, policy maker din po ako. I was
talking about the policy. I take full responsibility yung sinabi ko na war on drugs.
You said,
pero
sir, you can hold me responsible for any
specific
death.
Crime.
Yes, sir. You spoke about specific crimes.
Kung sabihin ko, I will take full responsibility, magdating tayo sa korte, hindi naman tatanggapin yan.
Well, Mr. Chair, and if the resource person could keep his volume and pitch to a normal
trying
level.
To pin me down on
Mr. Chair, you are pinned down by your own statements of October.
You have to pin me
Mr.
down
Chair.
I'm
not trying to pin you down on
The exchanges are no longer productive.
Mr. Chair.
Do not pin me down on semantics.
This prompted Senator Coco Pimentel to suspend the hearing. When they resumed, Duterte clarified that he wasn't irked by Hontiveros' question, but was just excited to answer. He also apologized for what happened. Human rights lawyer Chel Jokno meanwhile got into an exchange with the senators over terms that were used in the course of the drug war: negate and neutralize. Armed with police records and case testimonies, Jokno made the case that when police used those terms, that equated to an order to kill. Jokno presented the PNP's Memorandum Circular Number 16 issued on July 1, 2016 by De La Rosa that defined the parameters of Oplan Double Barrel.
Ang kampanyang kontra-illegal na droga ng Administrasyong Duterte ay hindi lang basta-basta nagsimula sa kalsada at barangay. Ang pinagmulan ng war on drugs ay isang utos o command na galing mismo sa pinakamataas na opisyal ng Philippine National Police. Ano ang pinagkaiba ng Project Double Barrel sa mga dating anti-illegal drugs campaign ng pamahalaan? Dalawa po ang pinagkaiba. Unang-una, may utos sa loob ng command circular na yan na mag-neutralize at mag-negate ng mga suspected illegal drug personalities. Pangalawa, ang utos ay gumamit ng drug list para tugisin ang mga sangkot umano sa illegal na droga.
Visibly angry, De La Rosa vehemently denied the accusation, saying people misinterpreted the term neutralize. He even looked up the Google definition of the word.
If I will give you the Google meaning of neutralize, ito pong nakasabi. It is a verb. Render something ineffective or harmless by applying an opposite force or effect. So ano ibig sabihin yan? Render something ineffective or harmless by applying an opposite force or effect. Ano yung opposite force or effect na sinasabi? Yan ang sinasabi mong negation. Negation operation. Na puro killing lang ang gusto niyang palabasin. Kung gusto kong patayin yung mga suspect na yan, bakit pa ako gagamit ng neutralized?
Former PNP Chief Debold Sinas backed De La Rosa up, saying that when they say neutralize, it didn't mean they were ordering the police to kill. He insisted police officers were just expected to stop the suspect and the aggression with just enough equal force. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. We are One News.
Our next guest was at today's Senate hearing as lawyer to some victims of extrajudicial killings. And we are welcoming him back to the big story. We have human rights lawyer and Akbayan Party List first nominee, Attorney Shell Jokno. Magandang gabi.
Magandang gabi sa inyo at sa lahat na susunod.
Attorney, thank you so much for joining us after that very long hearing. And it wasn't usual because we had the former president in the hot seat. First of all, as a lawyer, how did you find the interpellation of our senators? And what could you describe the power dynamic that shaped the whole discussion, being that we were interviewing a former president?
Well, I think it was very clear that the senators who were the camp or allied with the former president was doing everything they could to help him in the inquiry. To the point, I think, where they were bending over backwards in order to accommodate his weakness.
Were you satisfied with the level of questioning of the senators, and what struck you with the interpellation?
Well, I was very happy with the question propounded by Rivero.
Sorry, Attorney, you're coming in a bit choppy and we can't really understand what you're saying. Can we try the connection again?
Sure.
Okay, Attorney.
It's better now?
Yes. So much better. Thank you.
Again, what struck you with the Senate hearing? Were you happy with the line of questioning of our senators?
I was very happy with the questions propounded by Senator Risa Ontiveros. With respect to the others, it was, I guess, expected that they would propound those kinds of soft questions to the former president.
So in short, it went pretty much how you expected it would.
Yes, pretty much. What's very striking to me were the revelations made by the former president. One, that he encouraged the police to encourage criminals to fight back so that they could be killed. Mm-hmm. And second, that he himself had a death squad composed of civilians, or what he calls gangsters, to go after criminals. That to me, those two statements were very shocking.
Okay, I also heard earlier on in the hearing, of course, the testimonies of the family of the drug war victims, some of whom I understand you represented. How did they take what happened over at the Senate Blue Ribbon Subcommittee hearing today? Were they satisfied with the turnout?
I didn't represent any of the families who testified this morning. We did have a client of ours, a PJK survivor, who was present, but he was not able to testify. We were asked to submit an affidavit that we hope that he will be able to tell his story at the next hearing.
Okay. With what you mentioned about what the former president revealed, such as encouraging criminals to fight and to draw their guns so that when they fight, the policemen could kill them, does that give any culpability to the president? Could that be used in court? I mean, as a lawyer, could you guide us through, is that already an admission to convincing, or could that be used against him by the ICC?
If you take the totality of statements that the president is beginning from the campaign trail before he was elected and then when he assumed the presidency up to today, and you put them all together, I think it's very clear that he enabled the war on drugs, the killings, the thousands of people that were killed in the war on drugs, and encouraged the police to take the law into their own hands.
And yet he still denies it. Several times today, he denied that he specifically ordered police to kill drug war suspects. So actually it got confusing at some point because he would go off tangent, he would ramble a little bit. We never got clear answers. For instance, when Senator Ontiveros was pressing him about the death squad, about the setup and the structure of the death squad, he didn't give any clear answers. So us in media, we're also left a bit confused, right? So what can we do with his testimony, being that it was all over the place?
There are portions of that testimony that can be used against him. Those were statements made voluntarily by him at their oath, and that definitely is admissible evidence. But to me, the real connection that can be used against the former president is the circular that was issued by his PNP chief, now Senator De La Rosa, which references his campaign promise to get rid of illegal drug statistics. That's basically the very first basis for double tax. And that appears in the circular itself.
Attorney, speaking of that circular, there was quite a bit of back and forth between you and Senator De La Rosa over the circular number 16, no? He says his point being to neutralize does not mean to kill. It was not an outright order to kill these suspects. Did you buy that?
No, I didn't. In the first place, he missed the point entirely. And this is really what is a bit frustrating about these kinds of inquiries. Because the tendency is to obfuscate what the issue. The issue really isn't what neutralize means Google. The issue is why use neutralize in the first place in a command circular initiating war on drugs campaign. When the job of police is not to neutralize, it is to arrest, gather evidence, and file cases. So the circular should have been limited to, I hereby direct you all to gather evidence, arrest, and prosecute, charge the people involved. The minute you give the police a term like neutralize, which has no legal definition, you are leaving it entirely up to them to interpret it. And as the General Gamboa admitted, within the military and within the police, when you say neutralize, it can include killing. So even if the Google definition is different, the real issue here is when you would when you order a police officer mag-neutralize ka, you are leaving it entirely up to him to apply that definition when there's no definition at all in any circular or in any law.
Are you not
Now, why do
satisfied?
that?
Go ahead.
If your real purpose is to follow the law, then why include words like neutralize and negate? They are superfluous. For example, in the police report from Santa Ana, which we got a hold of, they repeatedly say the immediate apprehension and neutralization. Kung ang ibig sabihin lang nila ay manghuli, bakit pa nila dinagdag na dapat i-neutralize? And by the way, they kept saying, no, neutralize only means kill pag lumaban. But if you look at the circular, they never qualified the term. They just said neutralize. Kung ang ibig sabihin nila, neutralize pag lumaban, dapat nilagay nila sa circular yun.
Well, I think that was explained later on after you guys had a back and forth, you and Senator Bato. They said that because of these issues, they eventually in 2021 included a PNP definition of the term neutralize. But as you pointed out,
but that is only after
moot and academic.
That is only after 20,000, at least 20,000 Filipinos were killed. They waited for more than 20,000 Filipinos to be killed before they put a definition. In the meantime, while they didn't define, they left the police entirely up to themselves. Bahala na kayo mag-decide kung anong ibig sabihin ng neutralization.
Attorney Shell, it's one thing to say that these killings happened and another to point to the president as the one responsible. And Attorney Cristina Conti has said here that that is a challenge, linking all of this to the president's orders. Do you think that circular is very crucial in doing that? Does it have weight in this case? And do you think that after what we've heard in this hearing that we have enough? Or do you think there's a need for more hearings like these?
I think that there is more than either before the International Court or even in a prosecution in our country to implicate the president. But it's very clear that this war of drugs would not have been implemented without this and without this pronouncement.
Okay. You were also you were seated beside former Senator Laila de Lima. How was she? This was her first time being face-to-face with the former president. And kanina meron ding interpellation with her led by Senator Jinggoy Estrada, questioning her why she didn't file cases during her time as Justice Secretary. Kamusta naman siya after the hearing? How was her spirit?
I've always admired the guidance and my admiration for her increase even today with the hearing. I'm sure it must have been so difficult for her to sit almost right beside the person who was responsible for putting her in jail for 7 years on charges that turned out to be baseless and without any legal justification. It must have also been difficult for her to her composure, considering the kinds of questioning that were being asked of her. But I think she did a very good job.
All right, we hope to have you here in person so we could converse with you longer and hear you better. But always a pleasure having you over on our show. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. That was human rights lawyer, Nakbayan Party List first nominee, Attorney Shell Jokno.
All right, moving on right now, very big cambio over to the new weather disturbance, severe tropical storm Leon, which is now intensifying as we speak. Wind signals are now up in more areas in Luzon and the Visayas. Pag-asa's latest forecast shows the center of Leon, some 725 kilometers east of Echage in Isabela, and it is moving west-northwestward at 15 kph. Signal number 1 is up in Batanes, in Cagayan, Isabela, Quirino, Nueva Vizcaya, Apayao, Kalinga, Abra, Mountain Province, and Ifugao, as well as the northern portions of Benguet and Quezon, the Ilocos Provinces, La Union, Aurora, Camarines Norte, the eastern portions of Camarines Sur and Albay, Catanduanes, and the northeastern part of Sorsogon. In the Visayas, signal number 1 has been declared in northern Samar and the northern portion of eastern Samar. Leon is forecast to intensify further into typhoon category early tomorrow morning. Landfall is ruled out until Leon exits the Philippine Area of Responsibility on Friday, November 1. Meanwhile, Christine, or Trami, has made landfall in Vietnam. It is also taking on an eastward track, which lessens the chances of a possible interaction with severe tropical storm Leon.
Storm outside, storm in the Senate, storm everywhere.
And it's just a Monday.
Yeah, that was a pretty long and explosive Senate hearing. What were your biggest takeaways?
It was like deja vu of the 6 years of President Duterte.
Remember, talk to the people.
And her press conferences.
I had so
Reminded
many thoughts.
Me of talk to the people. Reminded
the
me
late
of that.
night COVID
talk
press
to the
con.
people.
Diba?
Yes.
But also, what struck me the most, and this might sound a little bit funny, was that he was actually there before 10 a.m., which had never happened before.
Oh, the fact that he was on time. Yeah, that's
Early,
true. Because
in the morning. In the morning.
He was on time. That's right. He got up. Because normally, when he was president, he was famous for never holding press conferences before noon.
Yes.
We knew that.
No events, no press cons before noon.
It's only afternoon.
And so when he was thanking in the middle of his all of that, he was saying, thank you for this opportunity. I really believed him because he actually woke up, flew to Manila, woke up early, and arrived at the Senate before 10 a.m.
Senator Risa Ontiveros trending on social media today because people are seeing her as the only one who had enough, let's just say, guts to really press Duterte for answers because all the other gentlemen seem to have given him a lot of slack, a lot of leeway. I don't know if that's a strategy, by the way. Maybe it's a slow burn. Maybe this is just the first hearing. Maybe the point is to get him comfortable, to get him to trust them, and then come in for the kill in the future hearings. I don't know. But the point is that that's why Senator Risa Ontiveros is trending because she's the one who had the guts to go, you know,
that's pretty much the sentiment.
To go head to head with him,
hold the line.
to hold the line with him, to try to press for answers. There was one point when they were talking about hell, infierno, and Duterte told him, Duterte told him, dun tayo pupunta, and she hit right back saying, well, wala akong ambition, pumuntang infierno, and so on and so forth.
Always putting things into context that what the former president was saying was still not according to due process, not observing or giving due process.
You know what else to add to what Gretchen said, if you notice and you're watching the live stream, they would kill the live stream as soon as things got a bit heated in there, and then they would just
Kaya pala paputol-putol. I was wondering why.
I really sat down and watched
I guess it's out of courtesy, but again, they should have just gone right through, right?
Baka kasi may mura tapos pinutol.
But even the mura, they were showing live, so I don't know.
Which Senator Risa also asked the former president
to tone
not
down,
to do. Yes,
because it was their house, as she said. That's correct. That's
my
Senate,
last
right?
takeaway, though. So everyone was saying that President Duterte is old, etc., etc. He did not want to stop. He was still game
But he was also saying na hindi niya maalala yung certain things kasi matanda na siya.
And matagal na yon, which is fair. I mean, I'm also the same.
But also, maalala yung pangalan ng death squad niya. Kasi
but there were only 7 names.
Oh,
exactly. But there were only 7 people, right? Supposedly. By his admission, there were only 7 gangsters.
Pero to be fair, hindi pa ako naging presidente and I haven't met that many people.
So he was kind of good also skirting the questions he didn't want to answer.
Which is exactly what Kaloy was saying.
Classic
to obfuscate. The point was to obfuscate, and maybe that's their strategy coming into this.
And there's a press conference right after the 8-hour hearing even.
Right? He was still game to keep going. Unfortunately, we have been told to not go on, so that's it for the big story. On this Monday night, we will see you again tomorrow.
Hey, we only have 24 hours a day. We got Tuesday tomorrow. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.